Hello. Hi guys, my name is Igor. I'm a founder of Block Scout. Block Scout is an open source block explorer working for EVM chains, Ethereum compatible chains. Luckily, there is no need to do any KYC and ML to use block explorers, at least for now. Yeah, today we're going to talk about block explorers, which is a bit boring topic, but that's a very important part of any ecosystem, including Ethereum one. So the main questions are why are we building explorers? Who need them? What are main ways to engage with users? Why do we need explorers in the future? And what are new things that we're working on, right? So Block Scout itself is used mostly on EVM chains, and we are all proof of work chains on EVM proof of work chains are using Block Scout, right? But why do we need explorers at all, right? So the main problem which any explorer solve is how to present data to end users, right? And usually the data itself is represented in the form of website where users getting into it through a link or by browsing, right? So for that, usually we need to have this data available at the same time as the data is produced on a blockchain, and users should be able to search for this data in whenever search request they have. Sometimes it's a search engine, sometimes it's inside the Explorer, but that's kind of important part for user experience is to get the same user experience as they expect from the regular application inside the data, which is not designed to be searched and not designed to be presented in a way that it should be consumed by users. So usually, when we store data on a public blockchain, we have it in the form of data optimized for storage, for consensus purposes. Usually it's some forms of hashes and hex data. Usually it's aggregated data structures, which are not very convenient for end users to consume. But users want to see it in a form of website, right? So that's how most blockchain explorers started around 15 years ago. Through the time, there are some evolution trends. And the main trend, which we see for 6 years working on Block Scout, is improving user experience, right? So sometimes this improving of user experience means just follow the leader, right? In our case, in Ethereum space, is just, let's make everything looks like Etherscan. But also there are some ideas how to stand out from the crowd and make the data available in new forms, right? So for example, this year, the big trend is importance of having large language models available in blockchain explorers. And if you look into all the fundraising of latest blockchain explorers, it's all about let's search data using ChatGPT or some analog, right? Another trend is getting data visualization the way that users don't need to think or read the data. So it's visual representations, for example, bubble maps, some flowcharts, UML diagrams, and so on, right? So this is also going into a trend of simplification when the data which we are browsing or searching should be easy to consume and also to be protected from adversaries, which is in Ethereum space, it's a big problem because there are so many different ways how bad actors can trick users into signing something that they don't want to sign, right? But unfortunately, because they're tricked by bad actors, they do this. And many block explorers or data visualization tools are actually working on the way how to make this less damaging, right? Another big trend in evolution is specialization. In Ethereum space, there are explorers for not only for block explorers, for analyzing transactions, but also explorers for developers, for example, Tenderly, explorers for people who are analyzing data using queries like Dune Analytics, explorers for security incidents like BlockSec and so on, right? So this is another trend where explorers are becoming specialized solutions for users' needs. So also we see here, like on the screen, you can see examples from Blockchain and Etherscan. They are building tools which are not helpful to analyze data, but basically they're building tools for monetizing attention of users. So they're embedding apps, sometimes they're embedding developer tools, social tools, like connecting users across different blockchains. And the trend here is to make kind of super app from blockchain explorers, right? We can also see it from different areas, for example, from portfolio trackers. If like someone creates a portfolio tracker, then the next step is, okay, maybe we can engage users to buy and sell, earn, swap, bridge, and so on, right? So something similar is happening with blockchain explorers, and they're becoming super apps where companies are usually monetizing users' attention. So BlockScout is an open source blockchain explorer, which is like 6 years on the market. It's supporting all flavors of different EVM chains. That's kind of interesting, but EVM as a concept was introduced on Ethereum, but many other platforms, which are not Ethereum compatible, have EVM on top of them, right? On Solana, there is EVM on top of them. On Polkadot, on Algorand, on Tezos, on Cosmos, you name it, right? Actually, on Bitcoin as well. So there are ways how EVM data can be pegged into underlying layer 1 data availability layer, right? So maybe that's a surprise for some of you, but EVM is growing very rapidly, right? So we have around more than 1,000 chains are launched with on different platforms, and that's only the chains that Chainlist website knows about, right? But if we think about like the whole spectrum of EVM chains on all different like enterprise and government applications, it will be a few thousand chains. And there are few cycles. So one cycle was basically forking of Ethereum and adding POA or early forms of DPoS consensus. Another one was with launching of layer 1s on top of other layer 1s, basically EVM on top of another layer 1. And now the trend is with rollups and app chains, right? So rollups are usually inheriting security from underlying layer from Ethereum, for example, right? And app chains are usually standalone applications which have EVM inside, but they use something cheaper or less congested comparing to Ethereum mainnet, right? And there is a new trend which is popping up. It's called rollup as a service. So that's a business model from SaaS world where multiple components of the whole solution can be packed together and sold as one thing, usually with one-click deployment. So, and because the rollup is a kind of interesting thesis for like fundraising and making money, so that's why there is a big business around it. Like, okay, let's launch our own rollup for our own use case, and that's remind me a lot of like launching websites on platforms like WordPress, where a new business can launch their own platform. They don't know what they're going to do with the website, but they know that everyone else is using websites and using the same platform, right? So rollup as a service is a kind of new trend why EVM chains are growing. So BlockScout is the leading tool. So we have more than 400 chains and rollups which are using it at the moment. And the secret why it's the most used one, I think that is because of what we think about the distribution model. So because it's like open source, like anyone can take it using permissive license. It's compatible with all different flavors of EVM. Can be modified without any significant knowledge of underlying technology, because the technology itself is modular, so index front end and deployment is separated into different modules. And it's relatively easy to install without asking any permission from any third party to do this, right? But the question is, like, why are we building it, and why are we building in the same way? So I think it's resonates a lot with people on this conference. If we think about most other block explorers in Ethereum space, they're closed source, private companies, for-profit companies, which are presumably selling data and following all the regulations, no matter what regulators will ask them. So it's so we think that it's very important for building blocks of any ecosystem to be open source and decentralized. That's kind of obvious, but unfortunately, not that many companies and projects are following this route, right? So for us, it's the most important part of the product, and we see that that's actually getting a lot of interest, and because many chains are using Block Scout as an open source block explorer, right? When we think about this open source and closed source block explorer, actually we have kind of similar problems with, as we think, as with proof of stake and proof of work with the Ethereum space, right? Like the centralized explorers, they usually have a lot of backlinks, and they kind of controlling the like narrative of whatever should be available for all new chains, because if you have like Etherscan, it means that your chain is respectful, but if you like don't have it, it means that you're awkward. So we think that the barrier to entry is quite high when the software is closed source and very expensive, like with closed source explorers, and same with entry to be a solo staker on proof of stake. And definitely self-hosting of any software is less censorship resistance comparing to having one point of failure. And we see with the increase of staking power in liquid staking providers, the risks are actually very close to be a problem, right? So we think that what is important for data exploration tools is to have easy barrier to entry. So for example, the main competitor on Ethereum mainnet, it costs around like 7 digits to get Explorer up and running. So that's quite expensive and actually stopping innovations, right? Because not that many out of thousands of chains can pay for this. It should be like available to anyone to run for whatever use case they have. And it should not be a central point of failure, no matter how important this instrument is. There should be some alternatives for this, right? So here we are. This is a newly updated version for Ethereum Classic Blockchain Explorer. Thank you very much to ETC Cooperative community for supporting Block Scout and using it instead of centralized explorers. So as you can see, like it's a full-featured explorer with all the tools needed to analyze transactions and extend it in case we need any updates. And the one part that like sometimes people think that if Explorer is like free and open source, it means that functionality is not as good as a paid one. So the in our roadmap for the future of Block Scout, we have a lot of new things coming to ETC instance as well. But I want to stress that like we think that important aspects which we're working on, and we think that it's important, is like AI tools, right? But AI tools not to chat with blocks and transactions as some other explorers are proposing. But I think from my point of view, the most important part is to produce what is known as transaction actions, basically explain to end users what transaction does and what it doesn't, because it's very important to help retail users to mitigate security aspects of increased risks, right? And if we think about risks on EVM chains, they're actually quite big, right, in terms of spam, scam attacks, phishing, and so on, right? So we plan to use AI tools to make summary of transactions and present them in a human-readable format, and that's one of the aspects. Another one is a social aspect. For now, it's there are several trends in Ethereum. One trend is, tokenize and sell friendship. But I think that's not the way that explorers should move forward. I think it's more important to make a trend where data from different instances across, hundreds and thousands of chains can be somehow interconnected, and the users will be able to message each other by signing messages across chain. We see this trend in resolving of security incidents when attackers or victims send transactions with sometimes meaningful information about ways to mitigate security incidents, like how to get money back or asking hackers to return something. And sometimes those conversations are pretty useful, right? We believe that social aspect is important, but the social aspect should be made in the way where censorship is not the case, right? So far, that's it.
Cool. I don't personally have any questions because it's all pretty clear cut. Anybody out there in the audience with a question for Igor?
Can you ask me a question? Yeah, you asked good questions before. Maybe you can ask a good question. One more time.
Yeah. So I don't really have a good question about block explorers, to be honest.
Because it's boring.
No, I don't think it's boring. I don't think it's boring at all. I guess the only question that would spring to mind is the competition between data sellers and open source decentralized solutions. So I mean we have Dune Analytics on the Ethereum side, right? And there are people that are trying to get in on trying to generate income for providing their services. And then we have the competing open source solution. And I mean, you work with a lot of projects, not just Block Scout. And I think that
now it's my main gig. Yeah. Previous one was Gnosis.
Yeah. So I wanted to kind of name drop Gnosis for people in the space that are not familiar with the solutions that multi-sig solution that Gnosis is offering, and also a very interoperable project. I really don't have a question for you, Igor, and I feel kind of embarrassed, like I'm cutting you short. Okay. Is there anybody out there with a question for Igor?
I beg for a question.
Please, Nick, save us, Nick, with a question.
There's also a lady who's going to speak first before me.
Okay. Oh my gosh, I'm happy.
Thanks. One of my favorite comments ever made about blockchain analytics software was Dina Mainville, back when she was still at CipherTrace, who said that blockchain analytics is essentially a sophisticated block explorer. And I'm curious as to your thoughts on other tools that can be built on top of block explorers and where that stands with your particular project.
Oh my gosh, that's a great question. So yeah, in block explorers, there is a main thing which is indexer, right? Which is getting data from public blockchain or other blockchains and basically making it in a way when other tools can interact with it. So the main tool usually is just a front end for this data, right? But there are some other applications, right, besides front end itself, like querying engine, right? Like Dune Analytics for Ethereum is a way to query data from blockchain, right? Another query service is GraphQL, right? When you can write in Graph protocol where you can write queries in GraphQL, right? Yeah, basically whatever can be done with data is is possible to extend Block Explorer, and we see two trends. One trend is specialization, like you have indexer for specific application, and another one is like mega app, where you can have lots of tools embedded into one explorer, right? So basically two different trends. So Dune Analytics, they don't have interface for analyzing individual transactions and blocks, so they're specialized on this type of service. But let's say Etherscan or Block Scout, they're like super apps which are open to any use case.
I got a question. Can you go back one slide?
Which one?
One popped into me. Yeah. So I want to look at social. So if we look at unmasking people's identity and tying their identities to their pseudonymous their pseudonymous wallet addresses, how does providing social inside of Block Scout work inside of that threat model of connecting people with their transactions? I mean, if you have, say, the ability to speak to people to do things for you inside of the network, does that potentially unmask users more? Does this make any sense to you, or am I just?
Well, yeah. So in most Ethereum block explorers, there is something called account, right? Like my account, basically, it's like settings for a user when they can subscribe to notifications, and usually they put some like addresses, right? And also they can verify smart contracts and submit some like metadata about like some tags and so on, right? So they're actually building some user-generated content for their individual account, and sometimes those accounts can have some intersections, right? Because they may be interacted with same smart contract. So that's where features of social features can appear naturally, right? So like if you subscribe to some smart contract, interactions of this contract, and someone else subscribed, you can see each other and connect with each other somehow, right? And there are actually some block explorers like DBank, which are already doing this, right? So that's one way of connecting.
Nick, your question, and then I think we'll move on.
Hey, I've recently done some forensics on Ethereum and really used BlockScan, which is not your product, but I'm curious about Block Scout eventually having a facility where I could put an address in and it would spit out every other EVM chain that address exists on. Is there a functionality on Block Scout? Will there be future integration with BlockScan, or what can you tell me, Igor?
Yeah, yes and no. So we as a company, right, we host some instances, like 20-ish something, right? But there are like 450 instances hosted by third parties. Sometimes some of them don't have any open interfaces to their systems. We know that some central banks are using Block Scout, like Central Bank of Norway or some Sberbank of Russia, because they all have some CBDC projects, and some CBDC projects have EVM because it's easier to find Solidity developers comparing to Rust developers, right? So this type of data is not like available, but there are some interfaces how multiple instances of Block Scout can be queried for the same data, and it's relatively easier to write a wrapper like on top of them and query all the data. And this is also a trend. If you can see, like on Etherscan, there is a super app on top of Etherscan called BlockScan, which is allowing you to query data across all chains. But making it in-house, like querying all BlockScout instances means that we'll need to have access to all instances, right? And for us, ideal situation where like people host BlockScout instances themselves, and we don't host it, right? Because if someone hosts an instance, it doesn't matter what anyone thinks about it, right? And besides whoever hosted, and that's a point of having decentralized software, right? That it's very hard to shut it down comparing to some other explorers.
Thank you so much, Igor.
Thank you.